are connected. Wait for someone to show up. Get a viewer or two in here, and we'll get going. But today we're hey, go ahead, throw something in the chat. Hello there. Let me know that you're here. We're just getting started. Let me adjust this, get it nice and level. Yeah, well, today, the news has been pretty overwhelming this last week. It's been just a lot of things. There's the Matt Gaetz thing, there's the George Floyd trials, just shootings and lots of discrimination, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and more shootings. It's been very stressful. So, and while we definitely should not be turning a blind eye to any of that, we got to look after our health too. So today we're gonna take it easy. We're gonna talk about something simple and a little bit more lighthearted. We're gonna talk about simplifying cash in the United States, just our currency denominations, the physical stuff. So yeah, go ahead and throw something in the chat, say hello. Yeah, so let me just lay out the problem. We have too many denominations of cash. We have pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, $1 bills, $5 bills, $10 bills, $20 bills, $50 bills, and $100 bills. Hey TC, yeah, you can comment on any of it. So you can see you just commented on Facebook. That totally works. They come through if you're on Twitter, or if you're on YouTube, or if you're on Twitch, they all come through. So you're good to go. But yeah, so nice, lighthearted conversation today about simplifying currency denominations. So there are a couple problems here. So first and foremost, of course, I think kind of the most obvious one, in my opinion, would be the move toward cashless payments, right? Electronic payments. So, credit cards, of course, but also things like Apple Pay and Google Pay, PayPal, other services, and then of course cryptocurrency, right? We're entering the information age. I think there is still a place for physical cash. Oh boy, I said do not disturb. Why am I getting a phone call right now? Yeah, but I do still think that there's a place for physical cash. For a variety of reasons. One, it's basically untraceable, and that's really important. Some people just need that anonymity. Some people just want that anonymity, and it's also, because it's physical, it can be a useful tool for people to help with money management. Sometimes, the digital reminders and stuff just aren't enough. Sometimes some people just need something very physical. But I think that the sheer number of different kinds of denominations we have is just overkill. It's too much. And then you also start running into problems with value. So the amount of money it costs to make a penny is almost 2 cents at this point. And instead of doing what a sane government would do and just say, okay, time to get rid of the penny, like we did with the half-cent coin at the end of the 19th century, I think. Excuse me. The government just made it illegal to melt down pennies and sell it as scrap metal. And the only thing this benefits, the only entity this benefits, is the manufacturer that makes pennies. So we spend a lot of money making pennies. Technically 1 cent coins is the technical term. Technically pennies are not the right term. But pennies, every year that we lose just in making it. And it's just this fundamental problem of they're so worthless, they're literally not worth your time. The amount of time that you spend fumbling with pennies, you could spend that time doing something better and more efficient. So it's called opportunity cost. And this extends beyond pennies. This absolutely gets into the realm of nickels and dimes as well. I mean, you look at the cost of producing a nickel. I mean, you're basically there. Dimes are not far behind. And you also just look at the mismatch of the numbers of currency that just don't make any sense. that like each stage of currency, like from one up to the next, should be a multiple of 4 or 5. That's like a pretty reasonable amount to say, okay, I need 4 or 5 of the lower denomination to make up the larger denomination. That's like a reasonable amount. But you look at like, there's 5 pennies in a nickel, but there's only 2 nickels in a dime, but there are 2 dimes and 1 nickel in a quarter, but then there are 4 quarters in a dollar, but then there's $5 and a 5. And you remember we used to have $2 bills, so there would be $1 or $2 and a $2 bill, and then 2.5 $2 bills and a 5, and then 2 5s and a 10, and then 2 10s and a 20, and then 2.5 20s and a 5, and then and a 50, and then 2 50s and a 100. It just doesn't make any sense. And so we can absolutely simplify this. And I have actually laid out a 5-year plan to get us to a much more sensible place of currency, of cash denominations. So how this works is we're actually going to follow the Canadian model of how they got rid of the penny. So what Canada did to get rid of the penny is they just stopped making them. That's it. They were still legal tender. You could still use them in transactions, but all cash prices were then rounded to the nearest nickel, the nearest 5 cents. And so you could pay 5 pennies or whatever to do that. You could either pay 0 pennies or 5 pennies or 10 pennies, some multiple of 5 pennies. But electronic transactions were left as being all the way down to the penny mark. But so then what would happen is as retailers sent pennies to banks, the government would then buy those pennies back, and then the government melted them down and did whatever it did with the scrap metal. I don't remember. I don't really care. It's probably just raw materials it could then just sell back into the private market. And so I suggest a similar model. In terms of what we do with electronic transactions, I would actually want to change the electronic transactions along with the cash transactions and just make everything the same. I think that's simpler, but I think that model makes a lot of sense in terms of how to actually get rid of a specific cash denomination out of an economy in a way that's not going to make people like mad or whatever. That makes it gradual and easy for people. So 5-year plan. The first year, we're going to keep it simple. Just stop producing pennies. So we round the prices to the nearest nickel. It's been working tremendously well in Canada. The military's also been doing this for a while. And if you want more for the argument, CGP Grey and John Green of Vlogbrothers on YouTube have both made great videos about it. The other thing this does is this introduces the idea to Americans that we can, in fact, change our currency. We have the ability to change our denominations. So that's year 1, is just getting rid of pennies. Okay. Year 2, stop producing $50 and $100 bills and introduce a $1,000 bill designed only for moving around large quantities of cash, not for use in like regular retail spaces. So you go to a restaurant and you've got your check is $73 or whatever. You cannot pay with a $1,000 bill. Nobody's going to take that. And we're doing the same thing with 50s and 100s. It's like they'll eventually make their way back to the government. 20s are plenty big enough. We don't need 50s or 100s. They're just annoying. They're a pain in the ass to deal with. You can ask any server who has to use a server bank. They're just stupid. They're not needed. We don't need them. 20s are plenty. And if you need to move around a huge amount of money and you want it to be cash, then just use $1,000 bills. And you want to have that dichotomy. Having that big spread is, I think, really important between, it's like, oh, well, it's 50 20s to get to 1,000. So like that's obnoxious. It's like, that's the point. It's supposed to be an obnoxious difference. So year 2, stop producing $50 and $100 bills and introduce a $1,000 bill. Okay, year 3. Stop producing $10 bills and dimes. So we still have nickels, but we don't have dimes. And this makes sense, getting rid of these 10s, the $10 bill and the dimes, because then, like I said at the beginning, the best spacing is to have 4 or 5 of the lower denomination going into the larger denomination. So you get rid of these tens, and then now all of a sudden you have, okay, it's 5 nickels in a quarter, and it's 4 fives in a 20. That makes a lot more sense, and we're getting really close to this. So now we're at we're still producing nickels, we're still producing quarters, and again, not everything has disappeared, right? There's still probably some pennies floating around. There's still probably some 50. There's still some 50s and hundreds that are floating around, but they're gradually disappearing. It actually kind of goes away in a nice half-life curve. It's very pleasant if you're into the math side of things. So year 3 is we stop producing $10 bills and dimes. Year 4, we stop producing $1 bills and we ramp up production of the $1 coins that already exist. So we already have these. We call them gold coins. They're not actually gold, but these $1 coins, they already exist. Ramp up production of those, and the reason for that is people are more likely to spend them if they're coins rather than if they are rather than if they're like paper or cotton or whatever the hell it is. They're more likely to spend it, and also they last way longer. We've all handled $1 bills that are just falling apart. So $1 coins makes more sense, and it will also lead to increasing in spending in the economy. So more durable, and it just makes sense. The inflation is real; it has happened. So $1 coins, I think, make more sense, and so now at this point we have nickels, quarters, $1 coins, or $5 bills, $20 bills, and $1,000 bills. That's what we're producing. We still have stuff fading out. And then year 5, this is really the kind of the icing on the cake, is when we stop producing nickels and everything rounds to the nearest quarter. This is the last step. So you stop producing nickels, and I think again this is just like we are ready right now to move to a quarters are the base level of everything. I think Jimmy John's already rounds to the nearest quarter for all their deliveries, which makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal to be rounding to the nearest quarter. Your 24 cents is not a lot of money. You can't really buy anything with 24 cents. So rounding to the nearest quarter makes a lot of sense, all the sense that it does. And I still do want to keep the quarter. There are people who want to get rid of the quarter. I think we should keep the quarter because there's still a lot of stuff in this country that takes quarters. All sorts of different machines, laundry machines and stuff, they still take quarters. It's a useful, whether or not you think it's a useful denomination, I think is irrelevant, because it's a useful object to have that we use. The whole point of money, right? What's the point of money? The point of money is to facilitate the exchange of goods and services. Quarters actually do that in America. They actually do facilitate the exchange of goods and services. And so I do think that keeping quarters around for a little while longer still makes sense. And so now we are, the only currency we are producing is quarters, $1 coins, $5 bills, $20 bills, and $1,000 bills, and that's it. So major simplification. This covers all your bases reasonably. You got, for actually paying for things, you have 2 coins and 2 bills. This actually simplifies cash registers dramatically at retail locations. And retailers who are considering getting, if you are a fan of cash, if you only have to deal with quarters, $1 coins, $5 bills, and $20 bills, retailers may actually be more inclined to keep cash around, rather, because there are people who there are businesses that take money but are now deciding to get off of money. You see this a lot in Los Angeles now, with clubs and stuff, or or big cities where it's places that are just we don't take cash, because cash is a pain in the butt to deal with. But I think that if you simplify the denominations, you could actually end up seeing some businesses still using cash for a little while longer. So that's my thing. Like I said, we're keeping it light, we're keeping it easy today. Nothing crazy. Just don't want to get super into all the nonsense happening in the news. Most of it somewhat temporary. But yeah, so that's my manifesto on coins. Nobody has commented, so I'm not surprised this wasn't a terribly engaging thing. But yeah, that's my take on how to simplify our cash denominations. Other than that, I'm just gonna call it there. Next week, maybe we'll come up with something a little bit more engaging and interesting. And I'm gonna need a lot of 20s for what though? What are you paying for that's more than $50 with cash? The vast majority of the time, I just lost some frames there. If most of the time, if when people are paying for something that's more than $20, they're gonna use their credit card. The vast majority of the time. And like when you do need a lot of 20s, fine, then you need a lot of 20s. But it's just one of these things of like, you also kind of want to encourage people to stop using cash for stuff that they don't need to use cash for. For your rent, I mean, I guess, okay. Do you not use a money order? Okay, let me think here. So $1,000. I mean, I'm just trying to think. So if your rent is like significantly less than $1,000, so if your rent's like $700, right? I mean, it's like you could pay with $1,000 bill and get $300 back. But to pay $700, you would need 35 20s. That's not terrible. That's not as bad as you think. 35 20s is not that many. Like I know that sounds like a lot. But like really it's not. 35 20s is not a ton. 35 bills. I was a server for years, and I would gather up all my cash. Your renter only pays in cash. Yeah, but I mean, like, again, I'm saying, like, my point is like okay, so you need. I mean, let me ask you, your renter, do they pay with $100 bills all the time? Do they always? I don't know how much their rent is, but do they always pay with $100 bills? Like I just think, like, I understand, but I still think that you can accomplish things just fine with $20 bills. I think people who don't regularly deal with like just stacks of cash, I think they tend to overestimate how cumbersome a large stack of cash is compared to like a small stack of cash. Like going from I really do think going from $700 bills to 35 $20 bills is actually not that big of a deal. Okay, they do usually pay with $100 bills. I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal. 35 bills to me is not very many. Like I said, I was a server for years, and so I would regularly count out. When I was making a lot more singles and fives, I'd have 1,000 singles, and it's like I'd have to count all of those out and stack them up and bind them together and take them to the bank. And like, yeah, it took some time, but it was like, later on when it was a lot more like 20s, like 10s and 20s, still like 35 just isn't that many. Just, you can do 7 stacks of 5, or you can do, 3 stacks of 10 plus a stack of 5. You count through them again. Like, it just isn't, I don't know. From the Yang Gang Roundtable on Discord. You want me to, I can go to, yes, I was on the Yang Gang Roundtable. Yeah, it's only a small inconvenience, exactly. But okay, this is a great way to put it. I'm so glad you said this, TC. Okay, it's only a small inconvenience. Yes, the inconvenience of going from $700 bills to 35 $20 bills is like way less than the inconvenience of like of like when you pay for a like $17 check with a $100 bill at a restaurant where your server is using a server bank, right? So they have to bring their own change, their own cash, their own money to work to make change. And if you have these massive difference between the bill and the check, it's like they might not have the money to do that. And like, yes, of course, it's kind of on them, like responsibility, but there's also like an issue of like security of how much money are they bringing, and it's like it takes a ton of time. What's up, Lucas? How are ya? I'm good. I'm good. You missed the whole stream. Today I was just trying to keep it simple. The news has been pretty crazy, and so I was just talking about simplifying denominations. So I'll take it through you through it real quick. So basically the idea is 5-year plan. Every year we stop producing a certain type of currency. We just stop producing it. We might round totals to do a different amount. But all the existing currency is still legal tender, but as it makes its way back to banks, the government buys it, and then you can melt down the coins or do whatever with the raw materials. And so in year one, it's, let me pull it out. So year one is just you stop producing pennies and round everything to the nearest nickel. And then in year two, you stop producing $50 and $100 bills and introduce a $1,000 bill designed only for moving around large quantities of cash, not for use at like regular retail. Year three, stop producing $10 bills and dimes. Year four, stop producing $1 bills and ramp up production of already existing $1 coins. They last a lot longer, and it will also encourage more spending in the economy, which is how we get to a healthier economy. And then year five, we stop producing nickels and we round everything to the nearest quarter. So then what you're left with, the only things that we are producing are quarters, $1 coins, $5 bills, $20 bills, and $1,000 bills, and that's it. So that's it in a nutshell. And so TC was saying that his renter only pays in cash. Oh yeah, and this is most restaurants now. This is the change, right? And like people don't understand this. There's a lot of people they don't realize how much of a pain in the butt it is. Like I, as a server, like I'm not a grocery store. I don't have huge amounts of change. It's a big deal to have to make change in cash. It's like it slows everything down. Credit cards are always faster. Cash is just super annoying as a server, and people don't understand this. And it's so cumbersome. It is such an inconvenience waiting in line for somebody to dig through their purse and pull out all their pennies and their nickels and their dimes, and counting them out, or at the gas station or whatever. It's just a pain in the butt. And so that's what it is. It's like the inconvenience from having to use more 20s when you get rid of 50s and 100s is far outweighed by the inconvenience of having these denominations of currency in the first place. There's just 50s and 100s are just annoying denominations to deal with. They're not needed. They're not used nearly often enough. That's another problem. It's like they're so rare. It's like if people aren't using them anyway, people so rarely use them that when they do use them, it's just like jarring and it throws everything off. And it's like you have to lift up the drawer and put it underneath and count everything else. And then when you close your drawer at the end of the day, you have to like, you're like short $50 and you're like, what? And you have to check underneath. Oh, there's the 50. And it's just annoying, right? In cash registers have 4 slots. 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s, pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. And everything else has to go like under the drawer or something else. Or maybe there's a 5th slot, but you usually put like receipts and like other weird coins and paper clips and other crap in there. Like it's just annoying. And so I think that this simplification can be really helpful. And it could also lead to like, man, dude, cash registers are so big and bulky. If you can, and of course it wouldn't happen right away because you got to wait for the denominations to disappear. But if you can reduce cash drawers down to 2 slots for 5s and 20s and quarters and $1 coins, like you can make it much narrower. Like you can have much you can have those smaller setups at retail and restaurants and stuff. Yeah, I don't want to say the inconvenience of like the inconvenient parts of money. I guess I would say we can make it so it's not so inconvenient anymore. We can make it that way, and that's what this plan is about. Yeah, so that's my point. Is I'm like saying like overall opportunity cost, amount of time wasted fumbling around with money. By simplifying all of this and recognizing where we are today and like the age of electronic payments, I think we can make it make a lot more sense. And so this is where I'm at. So now I'm getting all over the place. I was trying not to get stressed out today. I mean, I'm not stressed, but yeah. So also happy tax day, everybody. I just filed my FEC thing. And then there's nothing extraordinary about it, but yeah, we're ramping up here. Yeah, I'm not against money change being used at places, but I guess the downside is downside if it goes anyway. Coin collectors might be unhappy, and a lot of poor people normally use it. So coin collectors would actually be happier because now all of a sudden coins are getting rarer, right? It's like it's just exciting, right? It adds excitement into the sphere. I don't know that coin collectors would be unhappy about that. I think that would be like I think it would make the whole space more interesting. Poor people normally use it. Yeah, no, and I get that with like I said, pennies, nickels, dimes, they will still be legal tender, but like also, better that poor people, it's like when we say poor people, like, okay, right now I'm thinking of like homeless folks or whatever. It's like, okay, well, if the coins they come across instead of pennies and nickels are instead quarters and $1 coins, that's going to give them a lot more buying power. But I mean, even within that, man, like, I really just don't. Like I said, they'll still be legal tender. You'll still be able to use them. But quarters are still a pretty small denomination. So like I said, there are some people who want to get rid of quarters and just say, I want everything to be a flat number. I don't want decimals in my currency. I think that's extreme. I think quarters are really useful beyond just being currency. You think about like laundry machines and all sorts of other automated machines that take quarters. Quarters are useful for the exchange of goods and services, and that's the whole point. That's what money is supposed to do. It's supposed to facilitate the exchange of goods and services. Pennies do not facilitate the exchange of goods and services. They just waste everybody's time. But quarters, I do think, facilitate the exchange of goods and services. But pennies, nickels, and dimes, I think do not. I think tens make it worse. I think 50s make it worse. I think hundreds make it worse. And then I think ones could be made better if they were turned into coins. So that's where I'm at. Okay. That's enough. Unless you guys got something else, I'm going to end the stream. Alright, peace out. See you next week.